Hey, this is Brent with Lykins Motorsports. This is a 511 cubic inch FE with the FE power cylinder heads. If you look back a couple of weeks, you'll see the video on these cylinder heads and those being assembled and described. These flow about 460 CFM. They are big dogs. So this engine, we're hoping for around 900 horsepower. So we'll see. Jay's dyno mule that he had was around this size, around the same compression, same cam specs, or roughly same cam specs, but the heads flowed a good bit less. So we'll see what we can do. But here's the stage that we're at. I just finished torquing the heads on, and we'll just go over a few things here, and then I'm gonna recap how we got to this point. So FE power cylinder heads, this is not a traditional FE rocker arm mounting configuration. On a normal FE, you have 4 3/8 bolts or studs that hold the shaft mounted rocker arms to the head. This uses a more like a T&D or a Jessel style rocker arm mounting fixture. These are head stud nuts, and they sit down below flush of this surface here where the mounting bar rides, and then the mounting bar bolts down to the head stud nuts. So it's a very bulletproof rocker arm design. Mainly Nex-Tech valve springs, around 300 on the seat and around 800 over the nose. Titanium valve spring retainers. So raised exhaust style head. This exhaust port is actually like perpendicular to the pan rail. Okay, so it comes straight out like this. So the exhaust side does really well on these heads. There's the intake port. 5/16 valves. We're running Ferrea on both, titanium on the intake and stainless on the exhaust. So we're gonna do a recap and show how we got to this point here, and then we're going to be putting the oil pan on and then getting our rocker arm mounting Hootis bolted to the heads, and we're going to measure for some push rods. So I've done one other engine with the FE power heads, and it has not been dynoed yet. Jay is actually building the intake manifold for it, but we're going to see how closely the push rod lengths come in. I'm expecting a 7/16 diameter intake push rod and a 1/2 inch diameter exhaust push rod. So we'll see if that holds true. Well, I won't be able to know for sure until the intake adapter gets here, but I'm fairly confident based on the last engine I did, as well as a couple of customers who have contacted me for camshafts for these heads. They also ordered 7/16 intake push rods and 1/2 inch diameter exhaust push rods, so fairly confident. There's the FE Power logo, raised exhaust, got an Edelbrock water pump, no bypass, so we got that blocked off. Power bond, SFI race balancer, Lykins Motorsports billet aluminum timing pointer, and we'll have some BAM lifters and all kinds of different goodies to throw in here. We're going to be running a remote filter adapter. This is going in a Falcon, so we need some room on this side, so we've got a remote filter adapter, and these are -10 lines. We'll be mounting our oil filter up here on the water pump like a Shelby Cobra did, and getting that stuff out of the way. All right, let's do a recap. Alright, so the foundation for this build is a BBM cast iron block, 4375 bore size. So it's been bored honed with torque plates. The mains have been line honed. Decks have been squared up. This is a picture of, we have some restrictors in the lifter feeds to restrict the oil down for a solid roller camshaft. And we're doing a mock-up here. We got the crank in the block, which is a scat steel 4 1/4 stroke. We have one of my custom solid roller camshafts that is very healthy, about 875 lift, Chloe's billet steel timing set. I'll show you here in a second. The rods are Molnar rods. They are the Power Adder series, so just a little bit beefier than the normal rod that they sell. You can see them there. It's a 6/800 length, and I think the weight is around 800 grams. So still very light and very strong. There's the diamond pistons with an 11cc dish. We're using a 0.9 3mm ring pack from Total Seal. We're going to be using a vacuum pump on this engine, so we can get away with a little bit thinner rings and a little bit less poundage on the oil rails. We're using Trend tool steel wrist pins, so everything is as stout as we can make it. Pistons have like a moly skirt coating there for less friction, and just a really high quality bulletproof setup. Here's a shot of the short block. You can see that the pistons have symmetrical valve relief. So on an FE, the heads are symmetrical about the long axis of the head. You look at number 1 piston, exhaust valve is on the right, and numbers 3 and 4, the exhaust valves are on the left. So symmetrical layout. You see the vertical gas ports in those pistons, so that we can take advantage of the combustion gases pushing the rings out onto the surface of the cylinder harder. So between adding ring seal and then evacuating everything under the piston with a vacuum pump, you gain horsepower. There's a shot of the short block going together. Again, scat crank Molnar rods. Checking the bolt stretch on the Molnar rod. Rod bolts are ARP 2000 bolts, and they're wanting to be stretched between 6 and 6.5 thousandths. So we're in spec on there. Your higher end rods usually either give you a torque angle spec or a rod bolt stretch spec. Camshaft being degreed, always degree your cams. And all you guys who are buying custom cams from me, there's no point in buying a custom cam if you're not willing to take the time to degree it in. And I'm not saying that it's the quality of the camshaft that you're worried about, but it's just merely a stacking of tolerances between the cam, the crank, and the timing set. So take the extra time, degree that cam in, make sure that it matches what the cam card says. And again, there's no use in buying a custom cam if you're not going to check it and make sure everything's correct. So I've got a custom little pointer there for a lot of Ford engines that I use my magnetic base setup, and I can get that on a long snout engine like an FE. I can mount my degree wheel and get that pointer way out there. So just takes a little bit of extra tools, and you can do things correctly. There is a complete assembled short block. Timing cover is on, harmonic balancer is on, billet aluminum timing pointer is on. Usually the power bond balancers are dead on. I don't have to adjust the timing on those. Your ATI balancers are usually off around 7 degrees, so that's why it's one of the reasons why I came out with that adjustable timing pointer. Alright, so here's the centerpiece of the engine. The heads are what make the horsepower. These are the FE Power cylinder heads, titanium 5/16 stem, Ferrea valves, and 5/16 stem stainless Ferrea exhaust valves. I have to look back through my notes. I think they are 2 350 intake and 1 700 or maybe 1 750 on the exhaust. I guess I should have looked that up before I started speaking. If you want to see these heads going together, I did a video of those a few weeks ago. You can look back through the video history, and everything is laid out in detail there. So I'm sure I messed something up, and I see a lot of numbers every single day, and it's hard to keep everything straight. But there's those raised exhaust ports, and of course bronze valve guides, and everything needed to make those heads work. Alright, so as you just saw me explain, here's the components of the bottom end, scat crank, Molnar power adder rods, 6/800 length. This block does not come configured to run a rear sump pickup. Mr. Mike needs a rear sump pan for his chassis, so we picked up a Canton deep sump rear sump oil pan, and it'll use this pickup here. So we're gonna need somehow to fasten that to that stud right there. So we're gonna be using this ARP stud after I clean it off. My goodness. So we'll back this dude out, pop this guy in, and then we'll be able to set up our oil pump and pickup. We're going to be using a Melling M57 B pump, Bravo pump. They crank out just a little bit more horsepower than the high volume pumps, so we'll be using that guy, and of course our Canton rear sump oil pump pickup. Got our traditional main stud out, and we've got our new main stud going in. Got our washer and our nut, and we'll get that torqued down. And since we're going to be putting the oil pan on, we'll do our pre-oil pan installation checklist, we're going to go through and retorque all of our main fasteners and our rod fasteners just to double check everything. So we'll start with this guy again. We're also going to check, make sure we got side clearance on all of our rods. We're good there. Decided to do a quick oil pan test fit. It ain't sitting. You probably know why. It's because this pickup stud is about 10 miles long. So we'll get our pump and pickup mounted and see how much room or how much the stud sticks up above the pickup. Then we'll have to whack that thing off and make sure it clears. All right, so we're trying to fit up this oil pan, and the pickup just doesn't fit well at all. And I don't know what Canton was doing on this one, but I'm having to stack 2 gaskets just to even get any clearance whatsoever. Let me show you what I've been talking about here. So the pickup just doesn't, it's got this big rock at the back of it, and I'm having to do a lot of finagling here just to get this down, like relatively down, so away from the oil pan, and it just ain't working for me. So I'm having to make too many concessions, I guess is the right word, to make it work. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna send the oil pan dimensions to Josh at Kevco and let him make me a new oil pump pickup. This just isn't gonna work at all. So when you're having to stack gaskets because the oil pan touches, and you know, I could get out a hot wrench and bend this and tweak it, but you know, I always fear that I'm gonna break the seal around the pickup box to the tube just for, you know, $100. It's you know, safety in my mind, and I'm just not gonna mess with it. So I'm gonna get that done. I'll get those emailed to him, and then we'll flip the engine back over and we'll look at some rocker arm stuff. Okay, here is the rocker arm mounting bar. So this is held to the cylinder head with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bolts, 3/4 inch, 3/8 bolts. And then you can see here that they bolt to those head nuts with some 7/8 bolts. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. So this is kind of reminiscent of the old heavy duty Dove stuff. If you remember those, the ends of the shafts, you had that special nut that screwed on, and then the end of the rocker arm system bolted to that nut. So very robust system. So we'll get all these bolts started. The ones that go into aluminum torque at 15 pound-feet. And I'm looking at the instructions here. I gotta remind myself the ones that go into the nuts go in at 25 pound-feet. All right, we've got our bar torqued down on both sides, and now we're just going to measure for push rods. So we've got our BAM lifters in here. If you notice, the exhaust is down and the intake is going down. So we are in the clear to measure for our exhaust push rod length. Jay presets the adjusters at the middle of the adjustment, and so this is the preset on your adjuster for measuring for push rods. Then what we'll do is we'll put our push rod length checker in there. We'll set our cold lash like that and adjust our push rod length checker and measure it. So we're going to put our push rod length checker in here. We're going to unscrew it so that it touches up here at the rocker arm. I'm going to be checking my lash. It's too tight, so I'm going to screw that in a little bit. All right, so lash is tight. This will be our length that we need. So I'll loosen up these 3 bolts that hold the rocker arms on so that we don't have to take a chance of messing up our push rod length, and then we'll get a length on that. All right, we didn't go far enough. Back this one up a little bit. Okay, so we'll take a 12-inch dial caliper set and measure the length of this. All right, so it's showing 10 inches, 218. So we're going to order some, this is the exhaust side, so we'll order some 1/2-inch heavy wall double taper push rods at 10 inches and 200. All right, so to check our intake side, we're going to roll the engine over until the exhaust starts to come up like that. We're going to make sure that our bolts are tight on our rocker arms so that nothing is raising up off the register. Then we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to go to our intake side, unscrew our adjuster, check our lash, too tight, screw it in, a little bit too loose. Perfect. All right, so our intake side is set. We just loosen these 3 bolts up. Same procedure, pull this off, measure it. All right, so this is our intake push rod, and this will be a 7/16 heavy wall dual double taper. We're going to order 10-275 on this one. All right, so that wraps that up. So we'll get our push rods coming, and we'll get our oil pump pickup coming that hopefully will fit a whole lot better. And So this setup takes an intake manifold adapter. So it's like a quasi intake manifold that spans this gap right here, and then the ports will be over here, and then Jay has designed it so that you can just bolt up a myriad of different intake manifolds to it. So the intake port adapter has to be ported, and the intake manifold itself has to be ported. So both of those items will go to head porter and get those taken care of, and we'll be well on our way. So not too much further to go. We need our vacuum pump, we need a remote oil filter adapter that bolts to our Edelbrock water pump, and we've got a pair of custom 950 CFM carburetors. So this will be a dual carbureted intake, and we'll mount the carburetor sideways, almost like a tunnel ram type setup, so that each cylinder gets a snoot full. And yeah, so we're sneaking up on it. All right, hope you guys are doing very well. Thank you for watching this video and some of the other videos that I've posted. Our cleaver engine is pretty much done, waiting on valve covers to come back from the powder coater, and still deciding on Project JJ Jr. On what I want to do with that. Thinking about if the seller is still willing, I may snag a set of ported CHI 185cc heads and a 3V intake. So that would really turn that little guy up, and may have to do an end block piston notch. I don't know, we'll have to see. Usually on a Cleveland type setup, the exhaust valve doesn't come anywhere close to the piston, but the intake valve can, so we would just have to mock that up and see what would happen. All right, guys, hope you have a good weekend, and I will speak to you soon.